This video presents an introduction to the divided self of the schizoid individual. The term schizoid comes from two words of Greek origin, schizein meaning to split and eidos meaning form or type. In this context, the word schizoid can be understood to mean something like split personality. The main splits in the schizoid personality are between our mind and body, self and others, thoughts and feelings, logic and emotions, true self and false self, inner world and outer world. This means that there are aspects of reality that hold higher value than others. These splits create schisms within our psyche. The word schism comes from the Greek word schisma, which means cleft or division. These psychological schisms are the basis of the schizoid divided self. So how and why do these divisions occur? To understand this, we have to go back to the developing infant. When we look into object relations theory, we see that we all start life in the paranoid schizoid position. In this position, the infant finds himself in a very mentally and emotionally vulnerable state of being, anxious, paranoid of attack, and fearful of being harmed. This is a state of being that can also be described as a form of ontological insecurity. Ontological insecurity refers to a profound and pervasive feeling of insecurity and instability regarding the nature of one's own existence. It encompasses deep uncertainty and anxiety about oneself, one's relationships, and the world in general. During this time, the infant is especially reliant on the primary caregiver for support and nurturing to pass through this stage and move on to a position of greater security. If, for whatever reason, this does not happen, the infant will develop defense mechanisms to cope with the pressures and strains that this stage of life is presenting. When feeling overwhelmed by fear or other negative feelings, in the absence of adequate external comforting, the infant will engage in psychological defense strategies. Usually, when a person is scared, the fight or flight mechanism is activated, but in an infant of this age, it's not possible for them to flee the situation, and so withdrawal is often an option that is taken. In the case of the development of the schizoid individual, it's the self-protection mechanism of withdrawal that is primarily employed. This creates the first division, the split between the mind and the body. This split is made in an attempt to distance oneself from the outside world, which may seem overwhelmingly scary or threatening. By creating this split between the mind and the body, the infant withdraws from the physical world and retreats into what it feels like is a safe space. This is a split that leads the schizoid individual to experience the phenomenon of the unembodied self. Before I go on to explain more about the unembodied self phenomenon, I think it's important to further highlight the significance of the mind-body split in a schizoid personality. Because our relationship with others comes primarily from our physical interactions with them, with the detachment of the self from the physical body also comes a division between self and others. Back to the unembodied self, but starting with the embodied self to make a comparison. With someone who is embodied within themselves, the individual's body is experienced as being an integral part of the self. These people have a tangible awareness of being alive and real. Experiences to them are inextricably bound with their bodies, with the sense of there being a steady, continuous experience of being a person over time. The body is like a starting point that enables connection with others. Having a solid sense of self enables the embodied person to use their body as a starting point in social relationships and enables them to be a person within the community. On the other hand, with the unembodied self, the individual most closely identifies with the mind. They perceive themselves as somewhat separated or disconnected from their body. The body can seem like distant and unrelated, and it's experienced more like an object amongst other objects in the physical world, rather than as being the core essence of a person's being or part of their true self. Another split within the psyche of the schizoid individual comes between that of mind and emotions. During early development, the infant is going through turbulent and volatile emotions. When the infant has withdrawn to create a division between their self and connecting with their own body, detachment occurs from their relationship with the primary caregiver. It then becomes unlikely that the infant's emotional needs are going to be met through external means. The infant is then faced with the prospect of developing coping mechanisms for dealing with its own emotional state of being. Emotional dissociation is made easier through detachment from the body. This is because emotions are partially felt and interpreted within the body as bodily sensations through a process called interoception. This sense helps in understanding and responding to bodily needs and emotions, contributing to greater self-awareness. The mind-body split in the infant psyche causes a devaluation of the physical world and the people within it, and to create further distance from their own emotional state of being, the infant engages in the process of overvaluing their own thought process, imagination, and ideas. Therefore, the external object world is psychologically devalued. And the inner subjective thought processes become valued more highly than anything else. Another split of the psyche that takes place is between the true self and the false self. In order to deal with the events in the physical world, the infant develops a false self system that operates in synchronicity with its body and copes with the external demands of the physical world. The body is felt as the core of the full self, but not really part of the true self. The divide between the self and the physical body renders the unembodied self or true self of the schizoid individual unable to directly engage in any aspect of worldly life that is exclusively channeled through the body's sensations. This means that the true self tends to be disengaged from emotions, movements, expressions, and other activities that require physical recognition of bodily feelings. Rather than actively participating, the true self becomes a spectator of everything the body undertakes. It doesn't directly involve itself in anything, but takes on the role of monitoring, managing, and evaluating in relation to the body's experiences and actions in the physical world. These are the main splits that comprise the divided self. There are other divisions within the self of the schizoid personality, such as the libidinal and anti-libidinal ego split. However, this is all that I wanted to share for this introduction. All content in this video was made in reference to the primary schizoid. I have made a video introducing the differences between the primary and secondary schizoids that you can find using the link above. There is a lot more to the schizoid personality. In future videos, I will be taking a deeper look into the inner world of the schizoid individual and further exploring the schizoid true self along with the full self system, and going into parental relationships in greater depth to share more about the early influences in shaping of the schizoid personality.